Hey guys, what is up? I apologize for the long absence. I've got some more videos coming soon enough, but the next couple weeks are going to be crazy. Work's been crazy, life's been busy, so I haven't had much time to make videos. But there was one video I wanted to stop and quickly make, in part because I don't expect making this video will take as long as a lot of my other videos, and in part because it feels like the topic of this video is quite timely. I want to talk about the use of glitches in Dark Souls 3, specifically Dark Souls 3 Invasions. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm not trying to tell anyone else how to play the game. Really and truly, play the game how you want, however it seems appropriate to you. But I do want to give how I think about the game, and maybe more importantly, whatever perspective you have about the game and what's appropriate and what isn't. I'm looking for some consistency because increasingly I'm seeing people wedded to opinions that I think are internally inconsistent, and ultimately I think your opinion should be internally consistent. So with respect to attitudes toward glitches, I think there's three sort of defensible opinions that you can have about glitch utilization. I think the first is that you never use them at all, that you should never use them. The second one is you can use them but only when your opponent uses them first. And the third is use them whenever without restraint, but accept the fact that your opponents are going to use them as well. I think any of those opinions are defensible. For me personally, I tend more toward the never use them camp, but I have friends in all the other camps, and I think all those opinions are certainly defensible. Even though I don't agree with them, I think they're still reasonable perspectives. The perspective that I find unreasonable is the perspective that I'm going to use glitches, I'm going to use some subset of them, but then I'm going to get angry when my opponent chooses to use glitches and maybe a different subset than the ones that I choose. So I think you can try, and most people do, argue that not all glitches are the same, that some are more egregious than others. And I think you can argue this way to a certain extent, although if I came up and I stabbed you and you turn around and shot me in response, it wouldn't really do to argue that what you were doing was out of proportion to what I was doing. Sure, it's much stronger than what I did to you, but once you cross a certain line, you kind of have to just throw everything in and accept that it's all kind of the same. And so I think trying to argue that some glitches are okay but others aren't is really tough, especially because no two people are going to come up with the same list. Yet each person hews to their own list as if it is the only list of acceptable glitches, even though there is absolutely no consensus in the community that even if you accept some glitches, which ones are acceptable and which ones aren't. Additionally, even if you want to have the discussion about which glitches are more broken than others, I think there's a lot of lack of clear thinking about which glitches are really broken and which ones aren't. So just stop and think for a moment and ask yourself, and I'm sure most people already have an opinion about this, and they don't have to stop and think very hard, but in your mind, what is the most broken glitch in the game? Now, I guarantee that a lot of you are thinking right now, the bow glitch. The bow glitch is the most broken glitch in the game. I actually happen to think that it is one of the least broken glitches, at least relative to the main ones that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Estus cancel, I'm thinking of FAP glitch, Estus refill, no downscaling glitch. To me, these are all much, much worse than the bow glitch is. So, to my way of thinking, the most broken glitches in the game right now are Estus cancel and the FAP glitch. And I would say probably a close second would be the Estus refill and the no downscaling glitch. But Estus cancel and FAP glitch, paradoxically, are two of the most broken glitches, and yet they're often overlooked by many players as not being that big a deal. The FAP glitch and Estus glitch are relatively harmless. And this is a pretty common attitude that I encounter. And I want to try to convince you that the Estus glitch, whether you think it's okay or not, is really powerful and, in my view, completely broken. So let's talk about this. So imagine for a moment a Souls-like game. And we're going to imagine two kind of hypothetical extremes. So in Souls Game 1, you can Estus, but when you Estus, it takes 30 seconds to consume the Estus, and during that time, you're stuck in the animation. Well, you can see what's going to happen, right? Nobody is going to Estus because to do so would be an immediate death sentence. That would turn the game, that would turn PvP into essentially a no-heal meta because any heal could be punished. Now, of course, there's always going to be edge cases where somebody can get far enough away that they could still safely Estus in those circumstances, but by and large, it would become a no healing meta. And in fact, if you look at a game like Dark Souls 1 that had very slow healing, that is almost what it was. There wasn't a whole lot of healing, and if you did heal, you had to be super tactical about it. Like, you had to stack poise and put your back in a corner so you couldn't be interrupted and so you couldn't be backstabbed. If you healed anywhere near your opponent with your back exposed, you'd be backstabbed and you'd end up net losing out. Even if you got the Estus down, you'd take more damage from the backstab than the Estus heal. Now let's imagine the opposite hypothetical game. Let's imagine a Souls game that doesn't even have Estus, or at least not Estus that you have to decide to drink. Imagine a game in which the Estus is consumed automatically without any animation anytime you lose 600 HP. If a game were to play like that, then healing at that point becomes almost immaterial. At that point, your HP is effectively whatever your HP is times the number of Estus times the amount of healing of each one. So a host with 15 Estus essentially has a boatload of health, and I haven't actually done the math yet, but it's going to be something like 3 times what any invader is going to have. In a game like that, the battles would become completely driven by attrition. There would be no ability to punish healing because healing effectively doesn't exist, and no matter how good you are as an invader, because the host always has more than twice as much Estus, you're effectively doomed to lose. Sure, you can outplay somebody well enough that they can heal twice as much as you can, but not very often. And even if you're a really great player, you're not going to win fights like that very often. In fact, I could go up against the very best players in the game, and with more than double HP, I'm probably going to win most of those fights. Not because I'm better, I'm not, but because that amount of an HP advantage is just too big an advantage to really overcome. Now, we talked about game 1 being a hypothetical with 30-second heal times, game 2 being a hypothetical with no healing. Where does Dark Souls 3 fit in? Well, Dark Souls 3 was probably kind of middle ground. The heals were fast, but they weren't infinitely fast, and so they're definitely punishable. And in fact, many players, myself included, have spent a lot of time developing the skills necessary to efficiently punish Estus consumption. Well, now with the Estus cancel, are we in a world where Estus, you don't even have to consume it, it just is automatically added to your HP? No, we're not quite there yet, but we're a hell of a lot closer than we were before. Punishing somebody who's using Estus cancel, if the player is any good at all, is incredibly difficult. You have to basically guess when they're going to Estus in order to swing. You can't punish it on reaction. By the time they start the animation, if you try to swing with most weapons, they're going to cancel out of it before you can even attack them. It is incredibly, incredibly powerful. All of this means that whoever has the Estus advantage in a fight now has an overwhelming advantage with Estus cancel. Now sure, whoever had more Estus before had an advantage, but previously, if you attacked a player that had more Estus than you and you got them down to like half health, now you're in an interesting mini game where the person you've attacked has to decide what to do. Do they try to heal, knowing that you might punish their heal? Well, they can try to run away, but of course you can chase after them. Normally in that situation, a player has to decide, do I try to attack the other player to get them off me, but if I whiff my attack or they outspace it somehow, they're going to hit me again, and now I'm in even bigger trouble, and that creates a lot of pressure for the player that's at lower health, which they should feel because the other player has outplayed them to that point. The other player's done damage to them. That's exactly why the health system is supposed to work the way that it does. But if you can heal near instantly and without being punished, it turns it into attrition. The home team generally is going to have way more Estus than any invaders do, and so it's going to be to the home team's advantage to use Estus cancel. Now, maybe right now it's mostly invaders that do it, but as each day goes by, I see more and more hosts that are using this. So let's turn our attention to the FAP glitch. So the nature of any interesting gameplay system is it has to have a couple properties. So usually what you want is some sort of rock, paper, scissors dynamic. So there's no strategy that's consistently superior. No matter what strategy your opponent picks, you can adopt a strategy to counter the strategy that they're playing. or you want to have at least symmetry of strategy, or at least potential strategies. So if you play a fighting game with a particular character, I can always pick that same character, I can always use the same strategies, and then it becomes a simple matter of who's executing the strategy with more skill. That's also great. Obviously, you want the more skillful player to win in those situations. The problem with the FAP glitch is it allows a player to completely escape the consequences of whatever gameplay situation they find themselves in. If you're a host and your phantoms die, you start FAP glitching, I can chase after you, but I can never ever chase you, or never catch you rather, and you can continue to run until either you get a summon sign or you get more blues into the world. And of course, reds can do the same thing. Reds can kind of run away in perpetuity and wait for backup, and it really changes the dynamic of the game. In fact, the FAP glitch is what originally alienated me from Pontiff invasions, because I got so tired of the situation where I would kill the phantoms against great odds and then have to chase the host around or decide to black crystal out because I didn't want to play that particular game. But for these reasons, Estus cancel, FAP glitch are to me the most broken glitches in the game, and if I had a choice in which glitches got fixed in the game, I would instantly and without hesitation choose both of these glitches to be fixed long before the bow glitch. Now, the no downscale glitch would be a little bit more difficult. I'd have to give that some thought, but I think it's probably on the same level. I think bow glitch is by far the most distant consideration out of all of these other glitches, which isn't to say the bow glitch isn't broken. It is completely broken. I just don't think it's anywhere near as broken as the FAP glitch or the Estus glitch. So, I mean, to kind of tie this all together, if you want to use glitches in the game, I understand the attitude of if it's in the game, it's fair game. I definitely understand that perspective. I agree with it to a certain amount, although I think in a case like this where From is not maintaining the game anymore, it's harder to make that argument. I mean, I think everyone realizes that if From were maintaining the game, of course they would fix these glitches. They would not allow them to remain. Now, like Toggle Escape in Dark Souls 1, they did leave in the game. Presumably because they thought it added to the game, but I know for sure FAP glitch, Estus glitch, and the others would be removed by From if they were still maintaining the game. But above all, just be consistent. If you want to use glitches, go ahead, but you shouldn't be offended or surprised when your opponents use them, and you shouldn't get upset because the glitches they choose to use aren't exactly the same ones that you use. And one other thought that I would just kind of encourage everyone to think through: glitches, in my view, and the use of them is a form of pollution. And what I mean is, every time you use a glitch, whether you think it's a broken glitch or it's not, or if it's one of the glitches you think is okay versus not, the other players that see you doing it probably won't look at it in quite the same way. You may use a glitch that you don't think is broken, but other players may think it is. And when they see you doing it, they think, well, that makes it okay for me to do it. And it creates this general, more accepting attitude of glitches, and an attitude of, well, if everyone's going to use them, I might as well too. And then it just makes the game a lot less fun for everybody. If you're an invader and you use Estus cancel, that's great. But then when the home team's using Estus cancel and all the phantoms are using it, now you're in a really difficult situation. And sure, you can Estus cancel, you can run off and go Estus refill, but at that point, is the game fun? And if it is for you, then that's great and you should play that way. But for me, I just don't find a whole lot of interest in that type of gameplay. And that's, again, why I avoid Pontiff and I choose to play in other areas. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this content. It was a bit more ranty than usual. I'll be back to kind of my regular style videos soon. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for watching. Take care now.